Hey Girl Scouts, and welcome to the Cookie Booth Etiquette Family Module. Today we're going to be talking about everything there is to know about cookie booths and the best way to do it and be safe while doing it. My name is Samantha White, and I'm a second year ambassador level Girl Scout in Troop 20570. I've been in Girl Scouts for 13 years now, and cookie sales is my favorite part of it. So I'm super excited to take you guys on a journey about learning about cookie booths, my favorite way to sell Girl Scout cookies. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first we have our agenda. We're going to be talking about setup. So when you get to the cookie booth, what you need to be doing while you sell, how to do it with manners, and how to sell safely. We're just going to be talking all about our booth safety, which is the most important part because safety comes first. Then we're going to talk about breakdown. So when you're done with your booth and it's time to go home, how to leave a place cleaner than you found it. And then some tips and tricks to remember while you're selling cookies at a booth. And then we're going to finish it off. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to start with setup. So first off, we want to remember to work your scheduled shift. So if possible, we want you to be there for the full time that you're allotted and you're told that you have the booth for. Of course, we know life happens. So if something is to come up and you can't work your whole shift, that's okay. Just make sure you reach out to your troop leader or cookie person or designated service unit leader that you've been told to contact in these certain cases to make sure that you know you can contact somebody so that somebody else can work the booth if you cannot. But if possible, we do want you to try to work your entire scheduled shift. But like I said, life happens. So then when you're changing shifts, so when you come to set up, a lot of times there could be a booth or a troop that's set up when you get there. That was from the time before you. So for example, if you're supposed to work from 12 to 3, there might be a troop that was selling from 9 to 12 that could be there at 12 o'clock when you get there. So when you get there, just go ahead and tell them, hey, we're here for the next booth time and we're ready to sell. And then they'll probably start breaking down and it'll be time for you to start selling. Occasionally there could be a mix-up where that troop and your troop are double booked. If this happens, just make sure you reach out again to your designated person, whether that be your troop leader, your cookie parent, or your service unit leader, and let them know that there's another troop there. You should do that as well as the guardian for the other girl who's also set up, and then we can get it all figured out. We never want to argue over it or fight over it. Just make sure to reach out to who is the next person above you, and they can take care of it and find out where the misunderstanding happened. Okay. Next, I want to talk a little bit about where to set up, which is really important. A lot of times, stores will have specific areas that you need to set up for. You can find out these rules from your leader or cookie parent or your service unit leader if you are a leader on where you should be setting up. All together, you should never be setting up in front of a store door. So you don't want to be blocking the flow of traffic as they try to get into the store. You never want to be set up in front of an ATM. You want to make sure girls are a fair distance away from the ATMs and the door. We also don't want to set up really close to the road. So make sure you're safe distance from the road where there's any traffic happening, as well as where a walkway might be. So maybe people are walking or bikes are going through. So making sure that you have plenty of room to make sure that people, pedestrians, bikes, and cars all can, go freely, and that you're off to the side so people can come up to you if you need to sell cookies. All right, so then as far as storing materials, we want to make sure that anything that's not designated for selling at that booth. So the cookies and your cookie for the military jar. Other than that, we want everything to be held underneath our table. We don't want it to be on top of the table, making it really cluttered, or around the table, making it look like there's things everywhere. So make sure that anything that you don't need necessarily while you're selling is underneath the table. So maybe it's excess of cookies that you have in case you need to refill on the table. That's fine, but keep it underneath so that everything looks super organized. When it comes to attire, we want to make sure that the girl is easily identified as a Girl Scout. So whether it's wearing, a polo with your membership pin, or it's wearing a Girl Scout shirt with your vest or sash, whatever you want to wear, just make sure that the girl can be easily identified as a Girl Scout. So when somebody comes up, they know who the Girl Scout is and they know who to go up to buy cookies from. So that's all there is to know about setup. Just making sure that you're setting up in the right places. Again, you can find out the specific information from your leader, cookie parent, or service unit leadership. All right, then we're gonna talk a little bit about guidelines for selling. So we want to make sure that we're always smiling, using our manner, saying please and thank you when people come up to us. You never want to be rude to somebody, even if they say no. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But make sure that you're always being nice to people. Smile, make them know that you're super excited to be there and you really want to be selling cookies. Smile and saying please, say thank you so much for buying from me, or thank you for considering buying cookies if they don't buy. But making sure to always use your manners, because you never know how far a smile or kindness could go. And then make sure you're prepared for questions. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and ask me questions. Maybe it's about a patch. Maybe they used to be in Girl Scouts and they want to know, what's happening in Girl Scouts now. They'll ask you lots of questions, and you want to be prepared and make sure that you know what you need to know about Girl Scouts. So some examples are making sure that you know the flavors and the prices of all your cookies. So make sure you know for that year what cookies are you selling and how much each of them are. Make sure you know which ones are gluten-free and vegan. A lot of people don't know that Thin Mints are actually vegan. So making sure that you know which ones are gluten-free, which ones are vegan, like Thin Mints. So when people ask, you know that right off the top of your head. And then know which cookie is your favorite. A lot of people will ask for suggestions, and making sure you know which ones you like, so that they can buy the cookie if they think it's really good, if you think it's really good. And then also know what payment methods you accept. We do not recommend checks, but depending on what your troop takes, other than that, make sure you know what you're accepting. So if people want to know how they can pay you, you can answer them really quickly. You also want to know your favorite part of Girl Scouts. So maybe you love doing STEM, or maybe you love doing, outdoor things. Make sure you know that, so when people ask you, you can tell them your favorite part about Girl Scouts, what you're passionate about. Also knowing your favorite badge or your favorite patch. I have lots of badges and patches on my vest, and it's a really great conversation starter if somebody comes up to your booth. So, oh, that's a really cool patch. Where did you earn that? Make sure you know, and make sure you know your favorite badge that you've earned. You also want to know why your customers should support you. If I came up to your booth and I said, hey, why should I buy cookies from you? You should know, what makes you different and why I should buy cookies from you. Also knowing how many cookies you're trying to sell, so what your goal is. Some people say, oh, hey, how many cookies are you trying to sell this season? If you're trying to sell 500, you want to say, hey, I'm trying to sell 500 cookies. I've already sold 100. I'm on my way to my goal, but I'd love for you to help me support, my sale and my goals. So, make sure you know those things off the top of your head. And then also knowing what your troop plans to do with the money from the cookie sale. So maybe you have a really awesome end of the year trip planned. Make sure you know that. So if somebody asks, well, what am I supporting? Then oh, well, you're helping us go to Savannah, Georgia for our end of the year trip to see where Girl Scouts was started. So no matter what you're doing, these are just some ideas on what you should know as you go into the cookie sale. But just make sure you know these questions and answers in case somebody does ask them. Then we want to talk about the fact that a Girl Scout should always be present at a booth. We'll talk about a little bit later how sometimes we'll have multiple girls at a booth. Somebody has to use the restroom, make sure only one girl goes and the other girl stays. We always want to have a Girl Scout at the booth. We don't want to have parents there alone, so people think that it's parents selling cookies. So we want to always make sure there's at least one girl at the booth at all times. Then we also want to make sure girls are not on their phone. Parents obviously can have a phone available for emergencies, and have that accessible, but the girls should really be focused on selling cookies and the time that they are at the booth. So phones should be away. They can be used before and after, but we don't want that being used during the booth time, especially not when we're with a customer. And then as far as eating and drinking goes, we know we're in South Florida, it can get really hot, so having a drink every now and then off to the side is fine. But as far as eating goes, there are some exceptions, but if possible, we'd prefer that nobody be eating at a booth. They can do that before or after. But of course, there are exceptions that you can find out about, but try to do that before or after. And then if a girl can safely stand at their booth, we prefer that everybody stands at all times if they can do so safely. Then some little ideas on how you can enhance your sale. Visual aids are a great idea. I include this picture right here. We can see 3 girls holding up a sign that says, get your Girl Scout cookies here. Having that visual aspect for people who might be walking up so they know what you're out there selling is really helpful. There's lots of different signs you can have. You can make your own signs to have with you. So a visual aid is a really great tool to have to enhance your sale. And then we also have sampling. So a lot of girls like to have samples of the cookies out at their booth, which is a really awesome way to get people to try the cookies, realize how delicious they are, and then buy some. You might want to have hand sanitizer off to the side if you are doing this, for sanitary reasons, and then maybe you want to have separate plates and napkins, which we do recommend if you are going to do sampling. The only thing to remember is that if you do decide to open a box and have it available for customers to sample, you are responsible for paying for that box of cookies. So if you do buy 2 boxes of cookies, then you can sample them, but you are responsible for the fee that you would be opening them for. All right, and then when you're selling cookies, you want to use things like ask politely. So you want to say things like, would you like to buy Girl Scout cookies? Or can I interest you in a box of cookies to support my Girl Scout troop? So you don't want to say, buy Girl Scout cookies for me. We want to be nice and using our manners like we talked about earlier to ask nicely and get people to buy from you. And you want to be using your skills to convince somebody to buy cookies, but if they do say no, that's okay. We want to move on to our next customer. So you do want to try to convince them, but if it seems like they're saying no, you want to just move on. There's lots of customers to focus on, so just keep moving. And if somebody does say no, that is okay. It does happen, and that's a really big thing that we learned during our cookie sale is how to cope with people saying no. Not everybody wants a Girl Scout cookie. So if somebody does say no, don't be rude to them. Don't be angry that they said no. Make sure to say something like, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Because maybe they don't want to buy cookies or they can't support you today, and that's okay. However, if somebody says something like, oh, I can't eat the cookies, or I already bought so many cookies, but I would still like to support you, make sure to remind them about our Cookies for the Military program. They can donate anything from loose change to a full box of cookies and put it in the jar to help send boxes of cookies overseas to our military. So make sure you know about all these fun different aspects that they can support your sale in different ways, and just remember to have fun with it while you're selling and be polite. All right, next we're going to talk about booth safety. As I said earlier, safety comes first. Well, of course, our main goal is to sell cookies at our booth. Remember to, put your safety first. If there is a situation at a booth that makes you uncomfortable, don't hesitate to break down and go to your car and then call your troop leader or your cookie parent or service unit leadership to let them know the situation so that it can be handled. We always want to remember that safety is the most important thing. So if you are uncomfortable, feel free to break down and go ahead and handle it. We also want to set up, we talked about this earlier during setup, but make sure remembering to set up a fair distance away from the road so we're not too close to the road where we get into traffic. When it comes to money and funds, we want to make sure that adults are always overseeing the money. A girl can, of course, take the money from the customer, give them the change, but as soon as they're done doing that, the money should go directly to the adult to keep that and safeguard the money. And then also remembering that money should never be counted at the booth or even in the car. You want to make sure you're in a safe place before you start to count the money in a secure location. Then also when it comes to first aid, of course, we hope nothing bad happens, but having a first aid kit handy, whether that be underneath the booth table or in your car, is always helpful just to have just in case. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about breakdown. So we want, again, I'm just reminding you to work your scheduled shift. Like I said, life happens, it's okay, but if you can, try to stay the entire time. If you do have to leave early though, remember to contact your troop leader, cookie parent, or service unit leadership to let them know you're leaving early. So maybe the next trip can come earlier so they can make sure somebody's selling at all times. Then when it comes to changing shifts, remember if somebody shows up, let's say again, you're working from 9 to 12, somebody shows up from 12 to 3, and at that 12 o'clock time, make sure when they come over and they say that they're ready to sell cookies, you stop selling. If somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'd like to buy cookies, say, oh, thank you so much for trying to support us, but we have a new troop here. You can feel free to go over to see them and they can sell you cookies. So just making sure you're supporting our sister Girl Scouts. When your time is over, you want to direct them to the new troop. And then remembering to take everything with you. Do not leave any trash, and you want to make sure you're leaving a place cleaner than you found it as true Girl Scouts. I included this picture here on the left of these. This is what we call cookie cases. So inside of them will be 12 boxes of cookies. You want to make sure you're taking these with you. Sometimes you'll sell multiple cases and you want to throw this away in the trash, but do not leave it at the cookie booth locations. Make sure you're taking the trash with you. putting it in your car, and you can dispose of it in recycling or trash once you get home. But we don't want to be leaving any trash or filling up the garbage cans at our booth locations. We want to make sure we're being respectful of the places that are allowing us to sell cookies and taking everything and anything with us and then disposing of it when we get home. And if possible, we want to make sure that you're thanking the establishment. So, if you see a worker or a manager, make sure to go up to them when you're done and say, hey, thank you so much for letting us sell here. We were really successful. We appreciate your support of Girl Scouts. Just let them know that you're appreciating them and know that they're helping us out in amazing ways. All right, so then to cover some tips and tricks, we want to make sure you're keeping your goals in mind. When you're doing this, you're sometimes selling cookies for a long period of time. Remember what you're selling, why you're selling, and how much you're trying to, get to. Sometimes I've been selling cookies at a booth, and I can sell up to 200 boxes of cookies just in one booth time. So remember, if you're trying to sell 500 boxes, you're almost halfway to your goal just through one booth. So remember that the booths are helping you reach your goals and getting to whichever you're trying to work towards. And make sure to have fun with it. While you're at these booths, you really can't do this anywhere else. So make sure you're having fun with it, being creative at the booths, getting people to buy cookies, and enjoying it and learning the lessons that are available for you to learn. And then just remember that teamwork makes the dream work. So we do encourage for there to be multiple girls at a booth. So sometimes having 2 girls from the same troop at a booth is really helpful, especially when there's 2 doors at certain locations. One girl can be at each door, and then they can be selling cookies to get more customers. Sometimes it can get really busy, so you might have a line at your booth, and then each girl can be working towards a different customer, helping get that line out there. So having 2 girls is really helpful, but just remember, if you do have 2 girls there, remember to work with each other. It's not a competition. You're helping each other to reach, your individual goals and then your group goals. So remember that at the end, you're both going to be sharing however many cookies you sold. So don't fight with each other. Remember that working together will help you sell more cookies, and just keep that in mind. And then remember to use your Girl Scout law. When you're at these booths, and really in general, anytime, you're representing yourself, you're representing your troop, you're representing Girl Scouts of Southeast Florida, and you're representing Girl Scouts as a whole. So use the Girl Scout law and all the mottos that we go by each and every day to support you and lead you as you go through these booths and just selling cookies in general. So I know that was a lot of information, but that is it for today. If you have any questions, I know we covered a lot. You can email cookies@gsscf.org to find out any information or anything I didn't cover. So thank you so much for joining us, and happy selling.